Hello and welcome to Zerocarbonista Series 7. Don't panic. I'm Ian Collins, and this is your number one go-to environment-based podcast. If it's green, it's in. And I've got to say, though, we didn't do an episode last week because loads of stuff was happening. And I was almost thinking we're probably not going to do one this week because you'll still be at the Labour conference eating a lot of chips and drinking a lot of beer because the after-show parties are quite something at party season.
Yeah, that arduous. I think the whole conference itself was like an endurance event. A lot of talking. I mean, a lot of talking, a lot of interviews, and I did some social media interviews as well. The big thing for us was that we launched our Giga Poll on the first day of conference, Monday. Well, I think it's the first big day. That was in conjunction with the Daily Mirror. We had an 8-page pullout in the paper. It's online. It's gigapoll.co.uk. It's the biggest poll ever undertaken in Britain. I sound like Trump now. There's never been a bigger poll, right?
It's a beautiful poll. That's what you have to say.
50,000 people wide and 80 questions deep. It's a monster. And I did it because I was fed up with the picture being painted by Farage and the right-wing media about the kind of country we live in, what the people in this country are like, my neighbors, my friends, me, you. I want to know what Britain really thought. So we did the biggest poll that anybody's ever done in our country. And it told us that we're being gaslit by Farage and the right-wing media. Britain's not broken. Britain's not intolerant of immigrants, of immigration. Britain understands that immigration is good for us. We just want to see it controlled. I think that's completely fair. Britain's not anti-net zero. All these things that we've been told, the vast majority of people feel safe in their own neighborhood and safe in their own home, and that's contrary to the far right-wing narrative about the state of our nation. It went down really well in media and political circles, this poll. I think we had a chat with it on your show, didn't we? Or was it on Tuesday?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
live and direct.
Some big live and direct. It's always good to do a thing from conference because it kind of, I don't know, it feels very important, live from Liverpool.
It does.
It's Dale Vince at the conference. And we got, I said this to you off air that what was interesting is that a lot of our audience, wouldn't necessarily subscribe to Dale Vince Incorporated, as you know. But when you come on, we had an extraordinary amount of response from people going, actually, yeah, that's fair enough. These are people who are reform voters and all sorts of other areas, conservatives, who were actually quite enamored by the poll. But the point is, it started a big debate and a big discussion, and that's never a bad thing.
That's brilliant. And that's really what we hoped for, as well as painting this picture of what Britain really thinks. Funny thing about doing the conference interview with you and other people, it's the same. It's down the camera, down the lens. So that all I see is a camera. I don't see you. And there was something going on with the sound. I couldn't recognize your voice. I was thinking, they give me somebody here that's not Ian Collins. And it was only when you mentioned your old nan, I thought, well, I know it is him now.
Yeah, well, the day before we spoke to somebody at the conference, one of the Labour ministers, and suddenly in their ear they got the Talk Sport feed suddenly. So they started, there they were discussing matters of the day, and suddenly punditry on how well West Ham were doing.
They went from matters of the day to match of the day. I like
and she
that.
was she was thinking, what the hell is going on? They've suddenly started talking about football, and why have 3 other men come in the room to do it? So yeah, it was great to talk about it, but it was a big poll, wasn't it? I mean, as you say, biggest one that's ever been done.
Yeah, and it's had an impact, which is fabulous. And I mean, on top of that, I did some really quirky social media stuff out by the river. A couple of influencers or content creators, whatever they're called, who are really big on TikTok and Insta. And one of them, one of his things is to have a stepladder, and you both stand on either side of the stepladder, and he tries to guess what your job is based on a bit of a question and answer. And he has like 5 minutes to do it or something like that. It was amusing. The other one, he had his thing was that he stuck a camera in your face like this.
Yeah.
And he says, you got 1 minute to explain something to me. And he began with the periodic table of elements. And I happened to have memorized 50 years ago, the first 20 when I was at school. Yeah. And so he got me to recite those in about 20 seconds. It was super fast. And he's like, well, what about some others? And I'm like, well, I mean, I didn't even care. I'd done my 20. Was
done. Was it a physics test?
I don't know what it was. But then we moved on to
chemistry.
Diamonds. We did diamonds. How do you make diamonds? I think so. It was linked, and I described that in a minute. I was a bit rusty because I haven't talked about it a lot. And then we go on to my favorite topic, the green economy. 30 seconds, no, 1 minute on what the green economy is, and I smashed it. He loved it, so I knew it landed well. It was, the green economy from one end to the other.
I can't get my head out of the fellow with the step ladder because, I mean, I'm assuming he knew who you were.
I think he did because there were a couple of clues part of the way through. He said to me, "What's
the big Dale Vince lanyard on you around your shoulder?"
Oh yeah, well, that would have been that. Although I approached him like this because his people asked me to, and he made a big thing about the fact that I was intimidating him and stuff like that. But at one point he said to me, "What's the unit price?" And I was like, "Well, I hadn't talked about units. I know he knows what I'm talking about." I'd said to him, "The main thing that we do, the main thing that we sell, you can't touch it, you can't see it." You can't smell it unless you touch it, and then you get a burning smell for your own body.
Good point.
I thought he's bound to get it, but he did well. I think he chose not to get it.
Yeah, there you go.
It was fun.
We'll listen out for that. I'll have to fire up my TikTok account now.
Yeah,
rusty, I think.
And then I did a Telegraph podcast as well, which was actually quite fun. But blimey, the guy on there, I couldn't believe him defending Israel. He said to me, we need context. We need to understand why Israel's doing this genocide stuff. It's because of October the 7th. And his problem with emotion at conference, I think we're coming to, was that it hadn't acknowledged October the 7th. And I'm like, look, it was 2 years ago. We all know it was an atrocity. Everybody said it forever. 1,000 people were killed. It was an atrocity. That can't justify genocide, ethnic cleansing, mass starvation, and the 160,000 deaths and casualties that Israel has repaid. And I said, you can't conflate the two. But I don't think he really got it.
Yeah, well, if that's where you're at and you're so far with your head stuck up your own sort of fundamental opinions, then you tend not to. I honestly think that the only benefit of the doubt you give to people who don't get something when you put it to them very straight is that they're not actually being awkward or obtuse or deliberately. They genuinely, so ingrained in their own view, cannot see the other view.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And that happens in all
walks of life.
Politics.
It does. But it just seems bizarre to me that we can't talk about the genocide without talking about October the 7th and without saying that Israel has the right to defend itself. And I'm like, this is way beyond self-defense. This is actually way beyond revenge. They actually want the land of the Palestinian people, and they've said so openly. So you can't conflate these things, and you can't say I don't like that motion because it hasn't talked about something that happened 2 years ago. Anyway, I let him have it. And at the end, he asked me a random fun question. He said, if you could go back in history, who would you most like to have a cup of tea with? And I was taken by surprise momentarily. And I turned and I actually faced the camera and I said, Margaret Thatcher.
Nice.
And he was stunned into silence. And so I said, because I think I could tell her a thing or two. I think it'll make a great ending to the podcast.
She would go on any, the old dinner party. Who would your guest list be? You'd always put her on there, wouldn't you? Anybody would, I think.
I'd like to think that if she could see the harm she'd done, she'd get it.
Oh, come on! Now you're just being cynical, Dale. You're sounding like somebody who's anti-Thatcher, for goodness sake.
I sound like I'm woke now. I think even Thatcher's redeemable.
Yeah, there you go. We'll come back to Palestine. There's a couple of points to raise on that, but let's return to the conference because obviously there were big speeches. You were there for all of this. Just give us your observation of who are the big thumbs up moments, who are the thumbs down, and did any of it land?
Well, today, as we record this on Wednesday, Ed Miliband has given a barnstorming speech. He's gone full bore populist against Farage and fracking and stuff like that. I missed that one because I'd already legged it back here. To Stroud HQ, where we have this enormous flag, which is now legal, and we'll come on to that in a minute, I'm sure.
What? Despite all my letters? I can't believe it.
That's right. They didn't listen. The green ink meant nothing either. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So I listened to Rachel Reeves' speech and Keir Starmer's, and they were both lacking in policy. There's no doubt about that. That looks like it's being saved up for the budget. I think that's a shame, but they did give very clear positions, particularly Keir. What he's been saying lately is about division versus, national rebuilding and stuff like that. He's come out swinging at the right and the far right, reclaiming the flag. He talked about reclaiming all four flags, which was interesting, England, Scotland, Wales, and the Union flag. And if you look at the rally that Tommy Robinson had, they called that uniting the kingdom, but then he had one flag, the England flag. That doesn't unite the kingdom, does it?
That's a good point. Were there people with, just in the interest of balance, with Union Jacks?
Well, there might
Not
have
like
been.
you've got
But what about
behind you.
Scotland and Wales?
Say again?
What about Scotland and Wales? They have flags. They're in the Union Jack. Did you not know? You know that. Anyway, as a minor point, doesn't matter. Tommy Robinson probably can't count, so it don't matter.
In terms of what you thought was, you said it lacked kind of some meat on the bones, and I want, when I see it,
No vegan would ever say that. No vegan would ever say that.
So I should never say meat on the bone, should I? So some skin on the carrot. It lacked a little bit of that. It's understandable, as you say. There's a budget around the corner, but it's true. You do want a kind of almost that big moment, don't you, in a political speech where they go, "Wow, they're doing that."
Yeah. Now, I wasn't in the hall, so I didn't get caught up in the kind of emotion of the place, and it really can catch you up. It always catches me. So that may have been one thing. But actually, there's one thing I want to say about the Giga Poll, because it came up in every interview. People would say, yeah, all of that's fine. This is what people really think. But Farage is ahead in the polls. And I said, but that's a different thing. It's a totally different thing. And the reason or the explanation I've been offering the media is this. 15 years of Tory misrule. We came to the last election totally fed up as a nation. That was arguably a protest vote. We gave Labour a massive landslide, and we expected change, bigger change than we've seen. We expected things a year later to have be very different. And the reform thing is just another protest vote. All these people that were pissed off a year ago are still pissed off. They're like politicians, they're all the same.
Yeah.
Labour have got 3 to 4 years to make a difference now. And I hope that the budget will be a big springboard for some dramatic policy. The two-child benefits cap looks like it might go in the budget. Those are the rumours today. And I was hoping for it this week at conference. And if it was me, I'd let it out the bag now rather than waited. But
do you know what I think might happen, by the way? So I think Reform might announce a wealth tax.
No way.
I think it's possible. And it may not be the one that you've advocated, but of some kind. Because they've sort of flirted with the idea of renationalizing as well, haven't they, in some areas?
Yeah.
And, their whole shtick is meant to be, well, we're not, their stick, they say, we're not left, we're not right, we just have common sense policies. Now, you can make of that what you will, but that would be, I think, a reasonable, an honest interpretation of what they say. And it could well be that they just go, yeah, we are going to have a wealth tax. We'll make it work like this. I mean, there might be, maybe, if Big Nige is listening to this, he might think Collins has lost his mind.
Well, you might think that's a good idea, Collins. I'm going to do that.
Yeah,
you might, because I think he gets his ideas. Yeah, Rachel Reeves did mention a wealth tax ahead of her speech. There was a line on the screen quoting her saying that she didn't think we needed a standalone wealth tax.
Yeah.
I was immediately disappointed, and then I thought, oh, there's wriggle room in there.
Correct.
We don't need a standalone wealth tax.
What does that mean?
But we could still do a little bit of taxing.
So that could be oil, it could be banks, it could be that kind of thing. Is that what you're...
It could be council tax, banding, it could be all kinds of stuff. Last week they were talking about taking VAT off energy bills in order to get them down. And I thought, look, fair enough. Why we have VAT on an essential? I mean, they're also on other things like tampons, right, which are pretty essential. But it's 5% VAT on energy bills. They're going to take it off. It'll cost £1.75 billion. So what I've suggested to them is, don't just take it off and leave it, stick it on flying. We crunched the numbers and that would raise just over £2 billion. So, the government would be slightly better off, and they would have moved tax in a progressive way from something we all have to have and millions of people struggle to pay to something that is a nice to have and half our country never does, which is to fly.
What about our trip to Marbella, our annual Beano Dale? I mean,
it costs you another tenner or something.
We'll be screwed.
Well,
the boys won't be back in town.
It won't even be a tenner. I mean, hell, flying is so cheap. You add 5% to it, you won't even notice.
So that's the kind of area you think that when you mentioned the wiggle room, could be something like that.
Well, that was our idea. I don't think they're thinking of it, but I think there's all different ways to tax wealth, like equalizing capital gains tax with income tax. I've been banging on about that for years. The idea that if you make money with money, you pay half the rate of tax if you make money with a pair of hands. That's my way of describing it. And it's gained in popularity. A lot of people talk about it now. Patriotic millionaires have adopted it as one of their core things as well. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I would have liked to see some policies, but we didn't get that. But the mood was pretty decent around the place. So
Just before we go back to
Palestine.
there's a lot to be said on that, and we'll talk Donald Trump as well. Can we just give a little mention for Zack Polanski,
Yes, I think we should.
the big P?
He's got a podcast out. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's about him and talking green stuff.
That's going to be shit, isn't it? Because this is the only good green podcast out there.
Right. That's right. When you did the intro, I wanted to jump in and say it's better than Zack Polanski's, but I'll let it go. I haven't heard it, so I'm not actually qualified to say. But I'm about to sponsor it with the thing that we do that's called Ecotalk. It's led by Chris Packham, face of, in that way as an ambassador at the moment. He's our ecologist. And anyway, it's a mobile phone service, SIM only, and we put all of the profits that we make into rewilding Britain. And we can do some adverts around that talk about, Ed being, Ed, what's his name? His name's Zach, isn't it?
Zach, Ed. It might be the same person.
It might be. And actually, well, they might all be taking lessons off each other right now in terms of being populist, because, Ed went full metal populist today, and Zach has adopted the green populist thing pretty well. Anyway, we're just going to dot adverts around his podcast, and we'll advertise this one as well so that all my green friends know where to find us, and we'll see what happens. But it should be fun.
Good work. Palestine, because this includes the word embassy, the word recognition, and the word Trump.
Well, yeah, he gets involved in everything, doesn't he? But like the UK recognized Palestine about 10 days ago. It was a major thing, major thing. France, Australia, Canada did it at the same time. Half the G7 now recognize the country, and over 150 nations of the world. Very few nations now don't recognize Palestine. America is one of them, unfortunately, because it's rather big and influential. But I went on Monday, about 10 days ago, to London, to the new embassy. It was previously called the Mission, the Palestinian Mission, but now it's a full-on embassy. And the dude there, Hussam Zomlot, is actually a full-on ambassador. And there's a lovely event outside. Loads of people were there. Jezza turned up, which was quite funny. And he was walking past in the crowd to get to the front, and I shouted out, "Don't let him in, he's a troublemaker." He turned around, and he couldn't see me, but he went, "We're all troublemakers here." Oh, that was a great comeback.
That's a great comeback. Yeah, he's still got it, the old boy. Then I mean, he could be a spanner in the works, of course.
I think he spent his life being a spanner, as have I. There were three things I took away. There were some really moving speeches. The ambassador went first, and he said, and I like this. He just said, "Palestine has always existed in the hearts of his people, in the thousands of years of history. It's always existed. Now it exists in the eyes of Britain." I thought that was a good point. And then a surgeon came on, and the thing that she said that really impressed me, she said the decision to recognize Palestine ends the absurd contradiction that for decades we've argued for a two-state solution. We've recognized a two-state solution, but we've only recognized one of the states involved, Israel, not Palestine. I thought, yeah, that's brilliant. And the last speaker was a girl from the territories who had lost 48 members of her family to the onslaught since October the 7th. And that was just too moving to hear her talk about that kind of stuff. Yeah. I left in tears. It's true.
Well, but would you have been in tears, Dale, had you been at the United Nations the other day when Donald Trump gave a speech?
Tears of laughter, no doubt about it.
He meant to do 15 minutes. I think he did 15 hours.
Yeah, I think he actually did an hour, but I mean, your joke's funny, but I mean, an hour without an auto cue. But he don't need one anymore, does he? Because he's untroubled by facts and figures and realities and stuff. He just goes off on one. I mean, fossil fuels apparently are the answer. Green energy is killing us all. We're being swamped by immigration. Our countries are unrecognizable, and the West is doomed if we don't do what he says, which does probably include injecting bleach.
Well, I thought that was one of his strong points, to be honest. I'm well stocked up with Domestos, Dale, like no one else. I'm not trusting these viruses anymore.
His latest health advice is paracetamol causes autism. For fuck's sake. He's
he wheeled that out, didn't he? Without any, without any tongue in cheek. He literally said it, and his health secretary, who's as mad as a box of frogs, was kind of in the background, nodding sage-like along. at the idea that his dream had been realised, that he'd managed to get the president of the United States to spout bollocks to the world at the at the United Nations, and then at his own conference to address healthcare. We're going to eradicate. I think we've eradicated autism. He actually said the day before.
Trump began by complaining that the United Nations had once turned him down for a redecoration contract of their headquarters. He held a grudge about that.
He never forgets, does he? I mean, that's why he's kind of going for these people.
He blamed the auto cue on the UN. The escalator wouldn't work. He blamed that on the UN. He had to walk, poor man.
Trying to stop me. It's a beautiful stop. It's
great entertainment. But, I mean, there's a dark side to it. I've written something on social media about it because the American version of democracy is so bloated and toxic and awash with money. It's delivered Donald Trump, who is not just the president of the USA, he's almost the president of the world because of the power that he wields. And, he's been imposed on us like some kind of plague on world affairs and the futures of our countries. This phony tariff war that's on and off all around the world from time to time. He's bullying nations. The EU got bullied into accepting tariffs without return tariffs, and China, the only country in the world so far, told them to f*** off, and so far that's worked. He's left them alone. But anyway, that's is what that is.
Turning into a bit of a Musk is Donald, isn't he? Just to
he is a bit of a Musk.
Advance our new profanity. Should we do some questions, Dale?
Yeah, I reckon this is about time.
We've got some beauties. Speaking of which, Simon Brown says we need a collective noun for a group of Musks.
Yeah, we do.
Any suggestions?
Well, actually, we kicked this around when we first kicked around the idea of using Musk as a diss term that doesn't offend any genitals or anybody in the animal kingdom, anything in the animal kingdom. And actually, a murder is a great collective noun. It's used for crows.
It is murder of crows. What about a tosspot of Musks?
That's not bad. Yeah, I think that might be better. Tosspot of Musks.
It's always, that word's always going to be funny, isn't it? It's oft underused, frankly.
Did anybody in the world ever have a tosspot? I mean, where's that come from?
That's a very good point. Maybe it was when people...
You can understand, right?
Well, I'm going to say that it was when people flipped a coin and they were... sometimes you can flip a coin and you lose the freaking coin because it flies off somewhere. It goes under a sofa. So the pot was to enable to enact your toss, and then, but within the confines of a pot. So
I've had it wrong all these years. I didn't have that image in my mind.
Yeah, well, you've watched too many Carry On movies, Dale. That's all I'm saying.
The etymology of tosspot.
That's what I would say on that. Call My Bluff program.
I like it.
Kieran says,
I've got the first 20 elements of the periodic table, and you've got the etymology of tosspot.
This podcast is slowly becoming a kind of university challenge equivalent, really, in terms of its highbrow intellectual nature, I'd like to think.
All right.
Kieran says, feeling helpless, Dale, with Trump's latest nonsense. Any advice can help. Well, yeah, what is the advice if you're trumped out?
Don't take paracetamol, obviously. But seriously, don't inject bleach either.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Well, I think we just got to ride through it, We've had Trump in the world before as president, and I think this time he's a bit demob happy, he's a bit like free and loose and wild, and that'll have impact, and that'll be a problem for a little while, but not forever. He won't be here forever as a president or as a person on the planet. So it's just grin and bear it, innit? Try to laugh it off, just like watch and mock, I would say.
Nothing wrong with that. Shelley Marie Murray Hill on Facebook says, "It frankly has too many names." Can I just make that point?
I think you can say that. I think that's fair.
We're living in a world where we want to be more prudent with how we do things. So Shelley's hoovered up all the names. Can I get some advice, please? I'm being asked to remove my Palestinian flag. Well, you've got some news on the flag.
Well, yeah. So we've got this, obviously, I say obviously, but
if you're watching this in vision, and you should do, it's on YouTube, by the way.
Oh, nice. Yes. Good plug. It's a very big flag on our HQ. It's at least 30 foot long. And we put it up a few months ago before Keir Starmer said he would recognize Palestine. And what's been happening up and down the country is these shady lawyers for Israel have been threatening people that put up flags, even flying kites. Flying kites apparently is associated with terrorism. And they crushed a child's flight kiting event on that basis. They're nasty people. Anyway, we got a letter from the council saying you have to take the flag down because it's against planning law. And we read planning law and said, well, it's not, right? Planning law says you can fly the flag of any nation.
Yeah.
And they said, but it's any nation recognized by the UK government. And we said, those words aren't in the regulations. You made them up. So we stuck to our guns. We said to them, why don't we go to court in a nice way? Why don't we go to court and get this established? Because I wanted people up and down the country to know they could fly the flag. They went away. They went quiet because by then Keir Starmer had said he would recognize Palestine. And once he does that, it all goes away. And that's what happened. They just ignored us until he recognized Palestine. And now we can keep it legally. So my advice is whoever says you have to take your flag down, tell them to feck off.
Simple as that. And here's some X-rated corner, Dale. These are from people, for the uninitiated, who aren't necessarily natural fans of Dale Vince. You ready for some of these?
I am, because I've had a haircut.
Yes, because ordinarily there's always one about your hair. Well, there might be one kind of, I don't know, we'll come to that in a second. Uncle Clockwise says, your poll is about as relevant as a vegan with a steakhouse loyalty card. Quite funny, actually.
That's quite funny. But I'm not sure you're irrelevant if you're a vegan. I think the card is irrelevant, not you, the person.
Point. Yeah.
There you go.
This one comes from Lee on X. It's a post about Rachel Reeves' speech. Now, I don't know if this is aimed at you or Rachel Reeves, because Leah says, why does the 80-year-old lesbian keep appearing on my feed?
It must be me. I must look more like that than Rachel Reeves does.
Yeah, I think just for clarity, neither of you are 80 years old.
No, or lesbians, as far as I know.
Well, yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think we can safely say that without fear of getting sued. And Rab360 says, why is this idiot always dressed like he's in a desert? And that's also echoed by Derek, who says, has this guy left the barbers with the towel still around his neck? That's the best one.
That's quite funny. It's quite funny. We had washing up before, didn't we? Like tea towel. We had tea towel before.
All of that.
It's quite funny. It's quite funny. But yeah, obviously it's a Palestinian scarf. And if it irritates a few people on X, I'd say, well, job done.
There it is. Dale, we will speak in a week.
Fantastic.
You can, of course, follow Dale on social media, facebook.com/DaleVince, Twitter or x.com/DaleVince, and on TikTok too.